May I have your attention, ladies and gentlemen? I hope you are able to hear us. Can you type whether it is audible? We will start this webinar in a minute or so. Audio is okay. Everybody is typing yes, yes. Thank you so much for your response to say that the audio is fine. Good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, may I extend a very warm welcome to all the participants on behalf of CII. It's a pleasure that many of you have joined this webinar. The webinar initiative with CII is very well appreciated by our members, and we have organized 100 online sessions since its launch in 2009. Over 6,000 members have participated, and the feedback from them is quite encouraging. Today's webinar will deliberate on the topic of future of knowledge enterprise. Mrs. Rajeshri Natarajan, who is going to be our speaker, has over 21 years of experience in the IT industry and has been an industry thought leader in developing innovative software engineering and quality processes. Her contributions have effectively addressed the growing needs of the industry to deliver service faster, cheaper, and better. She has also played a pioneering role in developing platforms and tools to support globalization of service delivery, seamless integration of knowledge management with engineering practices, and developed a unique collaborative platform with a vision for future of work. She currently heads the process and tools and knowledge management group at Cognizant and is responsible for defining processes and automation for various IT solution delivery and knowledge management. She leads the Cognizant 2 initiative, bringing her expertise in structured process and social collaboration. She received the Leadership Award, the highest and most coveted award in Cognizant, for being the brain and the driving force behind Cognizant 2.0. She successfully led Cognizant towards CMMI5 level certification and higher level of delivery excellence by adopting of Six Sigma best practices. Prior to joining Cognizant, Rajshri has worked for TCS, D-Square, and Canby Resources UK, where she was involved in the development and management of application systems and tools supporting diverse industries. Rajshri is a Six Sigma Black Belt and holds a master's degree in technology from IIT Kharagpur. May I request all the participants to make a note that this webinar would be a one-way communication from CII Chennai. The live interactive session would begin after the presentation by Rajshri. Participants are requested to type the questions in the question answer box, which will be opened during the Q&A session, and she will take them up live one by one and will answer all your questions right. May I, on behalf of the participants, extend a warm welcome to Rajeshri Natarajan and invite her to take over the session. Over to you, Rajeshri Natarajan.
Thanks a lot, Captain. That's a warm welcome. Thanks. Let me start the session right away. So before we get on to the session, let me define what is that we are here to discuss about the future of knowledge enterprise. I mean, we have definitions like what an enterprise is about and what a definition of knowledge enterprise is about. Of course, today's most organizations actually, they actually have a pool of knowledge workers and not just workers, because it's all the knowledge, the real time, the experience that they bring in real time is what make any organization successful. So what we are here to discuss is about a future of knowledge enterprise and what are the kind of trends that we are seeing in the industry how it's already impacting us, and how it's going to impact us, and what is that we are trying to do to gear up for that future. Sorry for the disturbance. Just Okay, let me just first go through what are the things that we really typically change, and this is not a change that we're seeing overnight. It's been a trend that we've been seeing for past several years, of course. Of course, there's always been a demand for any corporate, any organizations to kind of operate at the highest level of efficiency and effectiveness. But if you look at in the recent past, that increase in demand is actually very substantial. Of course, everybody wants to do more with less, more with lesser time, with lesser people, with lesser set of experienced people, lesser experience, and so on. Why the change is that there's definitely a demand for more and more innovation in the business side, or more and more changes that are kind of happening very, very rapidly, which kind of puts a pressure on the delivery side that we need to kind of service it with substantial increase in the efficiency levels and effective levels, and also the newer innovation that we can actually bring to make the business successful. And multiple factors to that, everybody is going places, just that we are going places, our customers are going places, the customer's customer are going places. So everything is getting globalized, and also there's an increasing trend of virtualization as well. It's not that everything gets serviced out of one. It's everything gets serviced globally, and at the same time not necessarily the way in which where the teams were actually working together. Today it's all a virtual teams. It's not everybody sitting in the same room under the same roof. So it's all the virtualized teams, and people work from the home, different geographies, different corners, and we hope that in India we can actually see more people working from rural areas as well, without having them to move on to the urban cities. So that kind of a virtualization is really happening in a scale that's definitely much on a larger scale than what we have been seeing in the past year. So these are definitely very big global trends that we are seeing, which is actually creating a lot of pressure on the delivery side. And of course, some of our solutions, if you look back, they are very simple solutions, and I always go back because of the quality experience. I always go back and say that we go back to traditional industries like manufacturing, and some of the best practices there actually still holds good. For example, things like a linear array, pull-based systems, what came in during the Toyota production system time and so on, is still applicable a lot even in the IT service delivery today, and where people are forming agile teams and making a more pull-based systems to kind of meet the increasing demand from the business side. And also of course that puts a lot of competition. There's an intensified competition, also makes people to make innovation comes to market fast, and that also demands a lot of these agile pull based systems. And if you look at from the people aspect, right, a lot of people who are joining in today's industry, they're actually the millennial generation, or we call them as digital natives. They're not the people who need somebody to assist, okay, to go back and say how to browse previous page or a later page. And today's generation is they just open the iPad and start pinching right away. I mean, they kind of learn some of those technologies, much advanced than actually are introduced when you're actually coming into a corporate setup. And this kind of a millennial generation, it's not only happening in the workers, it's also happening in the consumers. So being an IT service delivery organization, we need to be aware that our customers and end consumers today, their expectation on this technology is very different from the expectations out of technology 10 years back. If we give a system saying that this is how the system behaves, there was a general acceptance. Today, the generation is entirely different. People who have worked with Facebooks and Twitters and who don't typically go through user manuals or to kind of go through how to kind of experience the system. They expect the system to be far more intuitive, and the kind of the way in which they work, they assemble teams or they work as friends or circles, the same experience is what they expect when they come together in the office and work as teams and so on. So these were some of the very larger changes just to paint the picture of what's going on in the landscape. And of course with technologies, something needs to come help us and favor us. Definitely technologies like cloud and mobile, though it kind of puts a lot of pressure on demanding usage or leveraging these in a different scale, but it also offers us a lot of opportunities to make some of the solutions that we offer for our end customers and consumers. We can actually tap into these technologies much better. And today knowledge is in everybody's mobile device, right? And it's, of course Google changed a lot when actually they came back. It's not that the internet and the wealth of knowledge was not available earlier. It was available, just that the kind of a search was actually a need of the hour then. And of course, there were several search platforms even prior to the Google, and the Google made it literally lot easier and lot easily accessible for millions and billions of users to actually tap into this knowledge, wisdom in a very easy form. So similarly, mobile is actually the next kind of an evolution, or that's the next major innovation we can call, like where the knowledge is actually in such a small packet. It's in everybody's pocket now because of the mobile devices. So that's the kind of changes that's kind of happening. And so what does all these changing landscape mean to us, right? So if you look at it, that also comes back saying that, okay, fine, these are the changing landscape. That means it brings in a lot more needs from our consumers, from our customers. So delivery need to be optimal in these kind of new changing landscape. It's not just enough if we just make processes stronger, making process more optimized. But we also need to learn, we need to ensure that we don't learn twice. And this is actually one of the goals that was given to us when we started this KM about 6-7 years back. Don't learn anything twice, not as an individual. But as an organization. As an individual, learning anything twice is actually like making an effort again to learn the same thing twice. As an organization, if you have to ensure that the organization doesn't learn the same thing twice, that means as an organization collectively, we should be able to learn from our past experiences and not the experiences as individuals like us, but experiences collectively, the experiences of the others who are in the organization, the past learning, all that actually should help us to kind of come back and say that. So that means the collective wisdom can be in any form. It can be in documents, Excel spreadsheets, it can be in codified processes, the system operating procedures, it can be in knowledge repositories, and not just that, right? Today's knowledge doesn't always get codified. If you look at most of the knowledge today is kind of in a loose and structured form. Typically, a lot of knowledge exchange happens in coffee rooms, pantry cars, water cooler conversations. And today's online virtual forums are actually replacing that. People are coming back and connecting webinars like this today, or the questions that you're going to ask, or the answers, or the discussions that you're going to have. These are actually very rich form of knowledge. These kind of learnings, and these are actually knowledge sources as well. So these kind of forums and blogs, whatever form, like all that knowledge that reside in the people, right? That's important, and that is the collective wisdom that we need to tap into. So that's what is kind of was coming to us as okay needs, and this is what we need to be aware of when we put together whatever knowledge charter that we're putting together for the organization. And of course, like when we were looking at, like we also wanted to go back and do, every kind of this kind of an initiative, we go back and typically look at what are the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. So we also started looking at what are the current challenges that we may face, what are currently things are the risks that we foresee, what kind of a typical risk that people have foreseen in this kind of an initiative, in the industry, any knowledge industry, any kind of a knowledge initiative. Typically we focus a lot on reuse. We want people to learn from others' experience. So what does it mean? It basically affects that, okay, fine, I have to learn and reuse it from someone. It means that I cannot invent it myself. So the non-invented syndrome is a big behavioral challenge. And we see that, like across, even in any learning, it's true. Even today's training sessions and learning, the students who go to the schools, they don't want to be coached, they don't want to be taught in the classrooms. They want to be facilitated where they learn it on their own. Because there's a feeling that they have to discover, and people as an individual, we all human beings want to discover things ourselves. We have to invent ourselves. So that's a very genuine feeling. But how do we ensure that the people get the feeling that they are discovering this knowledge, they are actually inventing, they are realizing this knowledge, but at the same time, they are reusing. So how do we make that happen? So that was one thing that we wanted to be very kind of aware of. And the second challenge is actually this 1% rule. If you look at any kind of these knowledge initiatives, we cannot just go back and ask people to just consume it. We want people, it has to be a learning as an organization. It has to be a very rich ecosystem which is living and thriving, which means everybody needs to contribute and each one needs to kind of learn from the other's knowledge and so on. So that means it cannot be just, just being consuming. If you look at this, was actually first proposed by the, at least as a theory, the Charles who actually wrote about this in Guardian, saying that if you take a Wikipedia, or if you take anything, YouTube, or if you take anything, most of us go back and consume knowledge. We go back, search, we look for knowledge. Even after the invent of Google, we go back and search and we get the answers and we're happy with it. How many of us actually make conscious effort to go back and contribute the knowledge that we have? And it will not be a big thing, if you, I mean, many things that I search for travel routes, and which travel route is actually in India is the least risky, given a time period, like when the rainy season and so on. There are a lot of forums which talks about, between here and Kumbakonam, what is the best route and so on. So similarly, if you go back and talk about a music or talk about anything of your interest, typically we consume a lot. We don't go back and contribute. After how many of us go back and after we travel, we go back and say this was actually one of the best route that I discovered. And we don't go back and take time and contribute, which may be okay for an internet world, because there are a lot of good artists sometimes who come back and contribute there a lot, but an organizational knowledge and these kind of, typically a close community knowledge, we want more people to come and contribute. That's important. So it cannot just be that one person rule, right? We want more people to contribute. Typically, one person is what people come back and contribute, and close to about 89% is kind of consume it, and probably other 10 people at least takes the extra effort of bookmarking it, recommending it, and passing it on to people and so on. The second set of challenge in any organization is actually, of course, operational challenges. If you look at organizations like ours, we are in the service industry, so we work for multiple customers, and each knowledge for every customer need to be protected right within the customer's protected knowledge environment. And it's also true, if you look at, I've seen many academy institutions who don't have that kind of a compulsion, but I've still seen people who have portals within every department or knowledge resources within every department and so on. But why do you do that? Typically people, we all believe that knowledge is actually king and content is actually gives us the power. And therefore, everybody wants to have that kind of content or information or knowledge right within that domain, right within that area, within that firewall, or at least, within their, so there's a lot of pride on KR Hills. So there are a lot of knowledge repositories. There are multiple use of knowledge repositories, I would say. But people were trying to do that. But at the same time, there are challenges of keeping, if you go against that and say that I would want all knowledge, kind of consolidation, codifying the knowledge, getting all it centralized. Typically, all central knowledge repository have the challenge of keeping it always central. Now, if you allow the respective teams to have their own knowledge portals or knowledge environment, they keep and they take a lot of pride in maintaining and managing and sustaining them. But if you make it very central, typically you have challenge of keeping them in its currency of a knowledge. Content is always a challenge. And the other challenge is, of course, like when we talk about knowledge, is not about codified knowledge. It's a lot about these kind of informal discussions and so on. These kind of informal discussions happens in multiple disjointed modes. Either it happens in telephonic conversations or through mails. Mails is not bad. To some extent, it's at least codified knowledge, much better than telephonic conversations. Then still the challenge is it's all in individuals, PSTs, mailboxes and so on. But when we have globally distributed team and having them to want them to share knowledge, these kind of multiple disjointed modes is actually an operational challenge. It's not that we can go against that, but at least we need to be aware of it and see what best that we can do about it. So we kind of became aware. That's one thing. And the third very important part was, many times when we do a knowledge, we take a lot of pride in having a very good knowledge management structure, making people contribute knowledge, share knowledge and so on. But typically these knowledge repositories are siloed, they are separate. And people who work, they work in a separate platforms. Their actual work, in shop floor when they work, if you have to give some knowledge, that knowledge needs to be, dispensed right in the shop floor. Typically in the IT, when they are actually working in multiple systems, when they are working in the various work platforms, right within the work platform, the knowledge needs to be kind of disseminated. And processes again, processes will get a lot codified, and a lot of knowledge actually gets buried in the processes as well. It doesn't stop just with what to be done. Many cases we also try to blueprint the process and how to be done, how that particular activity need to be done is also codified in the process. But unfortunately, these processes are also typically siloed in separate form. At least being in an IT service industry, it's a lot of opportunity for us to bring all these silos together. The processes, when it gets codified in the right form, it can flow into the right work platform, actually to tell people right when they are working, right into the context of that work, the processes can flow in. Typically, the knowledge can also flow in, right when instead of asking people to go back and do a search, pull knowledge, what they want, you can actually push contextual content to people when they're actually working. This is something like that. People who have used systems like YouTube, like you can actually watch videos, and when you watch videos, some music videos, when you search, it automatically comes back and recommends the other music videos of my liking, because it actually recognizes from the user behavior that this is what this user is doing, repeatedly searching, or these are the kind of videos that the person is watching and going back with recommendations. It's like advertisement, pushing, very contextual. So knowledge also needs to advertise itself. Knowledge cannot be residing in siloed repositories. It needs to advertise itself. It needs to come back and makes its presence, saying that hey, this knowledge I do exist as a knowledge, and this is relevant for you for what you're doing now. That's actually important. So that's exactly what we thought that we would be aware of all these challenges. And of course, when we took the approach, we took very simple approach. We said that instead of focusing on people actually coming back and contributing, stale knowledge is not helpful for anyone. Like any forums like this, the first important motivation is how many people are seeking this and how many people are looking for it. And we always believe that when you ask for something, people invariably give that. Just that people need to ask. So seeking as a culture is something that we wanted to motivate and promote first. So seek, so therefore you can find type. So we promoted a lot of forums first and encouraged people to come and ask, seek, and all our motivation initially was for seeking. We were motivating people for asking the question, asking the right questions, and that was actually trending and setting a trend that many people were coming back. Sorry about that again. I think I went back to just this one. Everyone? Okay, fine. So when you ask something like people are kind of invariably giving that, and so we were trying to focus that. Then once you actually make people seek and others were coming and giving the knowledge, and we also felt that there is no big deal to making creation of knowledge or consolidation of knowledge need not be central. We just make it as distributed function. Multiple teams having their own knowledge repositories was fine. We didn't want to accumulate. We just wanted to make them searchable. Like make them searchable so that it gets indexed. It's kind of, so the knowledge is available even in a distributed form, it's fine, but we wanted to make it powerfully searched. We called it as a router model knowledge management. So that was actually the second approach that we felt that it was actually very important for us. And the third is we wanted people to participate. So we actually first formed communities, like based on initially the role function. Then we realized it cannot just stop there. It needs to go social based on any interest, common interest that they have. They can form their own communities, however small or big it can be. And every work group and every team, they form their own working communities. So the community can be a community of action, communities of based on roles, communities based on interest, or a particular goal or action that they are looking for as a community of purpose or action, and so on. So we just encourage people to kind of form their own communities and also provide them multiple ways of seeking. It need not be in only one form. They can actually ask the questions in forums. They can actually ask the questions in, and they can come back and share their knowledge in wikis where they can co-create, share knowledge. They can share it in blogs, which is a very informal way, or they can share it as documents, Excel spreadsheet, PowerPoints. More importantly, people need to network with each other, they need to seek, they need to share, and that was important for us. And of course, finally, what was important for us is like, once we have this knowledge and we encourage the seeking, we have this participation culture, what we also felt is important is, we cannot just pass on these information, it needs to be processed, right? We need to deliver them as insights. So we need to tap into both the structured form of knowledge sources. It can be the codified knowledge in the process, it can be codified knowledge in the databases, it can be codified knowledge in terms of structured document and so on, or it can also be unstructured knowledge sources. It can be forums, question and answers, it can be a blog post, anything. But more importantly, serve it when there is an appetite. Typically, even training is actually a very good knowledge dissemination, but the challenge with the training is, it doesn't happen at the right time, and when it happens, and then you always send people who are available for training rather than who need the training. So it's that is how we were doing projects, and people that continuously doing starting up teams, and so training knowledge is a challenge. We felt that the knowledge needs to be disseminated when there is an appetite, and for that the knowledge need the knowledge needs to be embedded as part of the core business processes. So, what does it mean, right? When you actually have knowledge, that's what I said. It can be scattered all around, but if it's actually disseminated right within the work context, that is when it becomes very valuable. And if it's not shared just as information, but as actually information processed, and some amount of analytics applied, some amount of intelligence applied on the top of it, and it's shared as an insight, and it is shared as part of the core business platform, only then there is actually a very good appetite for consumption of that knowledge. So that's what we would sum it up actually our approach as. And I hope that I was speaking very fast and now I kind of consciously slow down. Hope it's fine. Okay. So what is our solution? What we thought we would do is we would make, whether it's a learning, collaboration, knowledge or innovation, that is actually a fundamental layer and plug that in as part of our work management process layer. Where the work gets orchestrated, that can tap into our learning resources. For example, we have learning resources in multiple forms. You have training materials, we have partnership with e-libraries where we have books, and we have other learning contents. We also have experts who are actually taught earlier in the training classes, but they all need to be available, and whether it's an expert or expertise, they need to be available when actually people are on the job. So right within the work environment, they can actually search and consume these knowledge sources. And we don't wait for people to search and consume. We also recommend, if you are working on a particular activity, because we have the power of plugging that in as part of a work environment, we know what people are working on. And we know that this person is assigned this particular task, and this task requires this kind of a knowledge. It belongs to this technology, it's on this process discipline, or it's in this vertical domain. So we go back and search from our knowledge sources and collaboration forums and learning sources and recommend people that these are the knowledge contents which may be of help to you, and these may be of experts who can actually be of help to you. Sometimes it's not expertise. They also want to directly make connection to experts and say that and share their personal experiences again. And we also encourage them to share their experience over a virtual platform so that that conversation or communication again becomes a knowledge source. So that is important. And similarly, any ideas which people have tried out or people have ideas on that particular domain or activity, that again is connected to the work environment. And right from the work environment, people can initiate a collaboration thread, they can search for a knowledge, or the knowledge also flows to them as a recommendation. They can actually seek ideas, right, on that work context. They can launch a campaign, seek ideas, or they can also search and get the past ideas and innovations actually bookmarked and recommended for them. So it looks pretty good, but then what is the fairy tale ending? Yes, it might look like the approach and the solution was, at least we thought that we are in the right direction, we had a good approach, and we had a very, foolproof solution. What we realized is that is when, if you look at the, going back to my first slide, it talked about changing landscape. One thing that we missed out on that landscape was the millennial generation, right? And adding, giving a very good knowledge layer, foundation layer, work layer, but still work was looking like a work. And today's generation, even though it's a work system, if you look at the right side and the left side, this is actually our chief strategy officer's slide. He kind of conceptualized this called future of work. He believed that the knowledge worker cannot just satisfy that providing a very knowledge-enabled environment right within the work. It cannot be just that. It needs to be a lot more social, because today's generation is a lot more social. And if you look at it, the right-hand side is a typical how every work system would look like. All grids, spreadsheets. Probably people of my generation, I still love grids and spreadsheets. But if you look at it, the left-hand side, that is what the people of today's generation experience in the weekends. That's their iPhone, iPad, or like an Android gadget, or that's the Twitter or a Facebook page, and that's how they see. And that there's a lot of expectation when they go for and look for a knowledge. This knowledge looks very boring. Like even if you are getting a very rich content, we felt that the user experience was very, very important. So that social layer was missing. And it's not just about the user experience. If you look at it, there is actually a fundamental, there is some kind of a philosophical difference. Most of the time when we design systems, whether it's a knowledge system or a process system or a work system or a combination like what we did, we somehow make the system very visible. We think that system is delivering knowledge, system is making people work, and this is kind of feeding the process, it's connecting all that. But if you look at a social system, it's actually connecting people. If you get into a Facebook, they actually are able to see a human to human. They just connect with their friends, and they don't see that system. I mean, that's almost invisible. They only see the people around that. So then we thought that kind of a user experience is actually important in future of knowledge. When you are multiple knowledge workers, and when you would want them to come and connect, it's not just important, just going back and making it easy for them to share knowledge, or making them easy to seek knowledge, or making it easy for them to consume knowledge is not just enough. We have to kind of attack and make it an intrinsic motivation for people to participate in that team, in the collaborative team. And that is where we felt a lot of things we learned from actually social systems. Simple things, how people get addicted to games, and how gamification is actually making people to connect together. How not just the millennial generation, even the actually elders, if you look at it, how they are actually connected and hooked onto these systems, and how they actually feel some kind of emotions, discussing with their peer group or their old alumni or friends or virtualized families. And today families are virtualized where they connect through Facebooks. So virtualized families, how can we bring that experience in a working environment where when the teams are distributed or virtualized, they still get a feeling that they are working under one roof, and still they are motivated to help each other, to share each other. That kind of a bonding typically develops over a period of time when they are under one roof. Can we get that kind of a bonding for virtual teams? So that is what we wanted to go back and started looking at these kind of user experience. We learned a lot from our users. They pushed us back. So we started looking at what are those essential elements. We started looking at, okay, fine, we started giving too many features, and then sometimes not everything is what everybody wanted, and they wanted very simple, intuitive interface that only for the job that they do. So we started unbundling a lot of their applications, and something like an iPad or an Android app world, anything that they want, they would do the point function and go. So we wanted to kind of make every individual like solution for every pain points, something like that. We started looking at that as a strategy from a platform standpoint. And the other important, being in an IT industry, our CIO always says that we work for multiple CIOs, because every IT person in the organization behaves like a chief information officer, because they know the technology very well, so they can't just like that live with what systems that we provide them. So they need to play their hands. And we also believe that some of these the newer generation platforms are successful because people are allowed, and there is an ecosystem of around that people come and build their own apps for their own needs, which was very important. So you can't go back and conceptualize solution for everybody's needs. So we opened up a lot of our knowledge sources, of course with appropriate confidentiality, control, security, and so on. But we allowed people to do their own mashups of information, mashup of data, mashup of insights, mashup of services from work system, and so on. So that it also made people to come up with their own applications on the top of that. And the moment they add the satisfaction of cooking something, the consumption was great. They had the satisfaction of they at least participated in the cooking. So they had a lot of loyalty to the platform. So that was one other important one. And on the right side, we also felt a lot of need for designing with empathy, and not just make the system visible. Even in a work system, when there is a manager and when there is a supervisor and when there is a team member, I mean, the system doesn't have to go back and say that this task is assigned to you. It's actually a conversation between a manager and a team member. So can we go back and make it and facilitate a conversation between the manager and the team member? They are saying that, hey, this manager wants you to look at this point of time, and he's also recommending you these knowledge sources. Or if there is a conversation back from so that kind of a virtual teams is very important to make the team, the platform facilitate a very humanly conversations between the knowledge workers. So that we felt is very important. If you are targeting a knowledge worker, then in the knowledge worker, there is actually everybody brings that part of the knowledge. Everyone is kind of an equal. It's actually kind of a team formed of equals. So everyone share what they know as their experience. They bring their specific skill into the team. So it's important to facilitate a very humanly conversation among them to actually provide the team bonding. And another important aspect was when we were studying a lot of these social systems, we had this feeling that hey, it's very lot easy for asking people to go back and share and bond with their family members, their college alumni, and discuss about where they should have the next party or hangout and so on. But how do we make people collaborate on a work context? We are not talking about just making people connect with each other, but also like influence the right behavior, making people share knowledge, help each other's problem, or like a kind of collective innovate together or co-innovate as a team. So how do we promote that? That is why we kind of lot of learnings that we had. A lot of today's generation is a generation of instant gratification. So I mean they don't believe in too much of monetary rewards even a simple like a social system, or if you just go back and post it in the users wall saying that they've done a great job on that day and they won this badge for this particular like doing consistently the third time, things like that. And we have to be careful. We can't go back and promote behavior like coming to office on time is like getting them a badge type. But then if they do it regularly, consistently, why not, right? So and we have to be very careful. Completing all tasks on time. Every time you kind of reward them a badge, it's like too many things. It's kind of losing its significance. But if they're doing it consistently for a quarter, somebody who's like always on time on all tasks, delivered on time, and it's definitely right promotion. So these kind of promoting the right behavior, that kind of that behavior is what we kind of attack from the user experience standpoint. Typically, like somebody went out and shared their knowledge and experience, always by doing it, acting as a linchpin for a community, definitely need to be promoted. They were actually started becoming part of the leaderboard, and the moment just the satisfaction of seeing them in the leaderboard along with the CEO, it's a very bigger gratification than actually giving them any monetary award. Somebody who's contributing knowledge significantly, and they get the same space as that of Francisco Dizazo in a leaderboard. I mean, it's a virtual leaderboard, of course, which is our homepage, and we promote all the people, like who are actually doing that kind of sharing a lot of knowledge, collaborating, and all the work analytics. Therefore the performance and other things, bringing them in the leaderboard actually was a very big satisfaction. That was motivating itself. That was helping us, to tap into that collective wisdom. Like once you make people seek, share, and then tapping into the collective wisdom is more a platform job. Now, how do we translate information to insights? How do we reduce noise from the signals so that you actually get the right signals filtered out? Multiple things. We need to leverage the human wisdom as well, and we need to filter out. So when people ask for bubbling it up, you should bubble it up. And at the same time, when more people come back and say that you bubble it up, naturally, that's more a signal than a noise. So we started applying that in the lot of the work systems as well. So when we wanted to tap into the collective wisdom, we didn't want to apply it only for our knowledge systems. We felt that knowledge cannot be in isolation, right? It cannot be in silos. We started re-looking at our processes. For example, our risk management, we have a risk management system. Can we go back and tap into this collective wisdom to identify risks? Can I go back and have a conversations with my team asking people to come and identify risks? And moment people come and identify risks, can I go back and again tap into the wisdom of the team saying that which of these risks which people really feel that they also agree that it's a risk. Something similar to Facebook, when somebody posts and many people come back and say, I like this, more people say, I like this, it bubbles up. So we thought that similarly when a risk is actually identified by the team or more people identify the team, let's go back to the wisdom of this team, the crowd. Many people come back and say, I also foresee this as a risk. Then the rating automatically bubbles up. So it's not like we need to go back and sit and evaluate the severity of the risk separately as an exercise. So the wisdom of the crowd was actually bubbling up the rating of the risks and so on. Many things, like in our IT systems, when we actually open it to end users, when multiple people report the same defect or more people come back and say, I also face this issue, the issues automatically bubble up. So that way we were tapping into the collective wisdom. Similarly, ideas, when more people like the ideas, but then that's more from the crowd, so that's more like the crowd rating. That doesn't mean that we always rely only on that. We also have something called as a depth rating, where we bring the subject matter expertise. Because sometimes many people don't see, doesn't mean that the risk doesn't exist. Sometimes it's so intrinsic to the domain, you need to actually have the domain expert to come and do that. So we have checks and controls, tapping into the collective wisdom, at the same time bringing in the experts and experts rating it as a separate gate and so on. So these were some of the things actually which kind of helped us to come back and do that. So some of the design principles, I think I kind of covered most of the design principles from a processes standpoint, whatever, like the way in which the processes itself need to be designed socially. We need to build the platform socially so that people believe that they are part of, they actually have their own wall, and every community has their own wall, and it's all kind of, just kind of sum it up, you can actually see that in the system. I mean, this is pretty much what I kind of sum it up in the making process social, making platform social. These are important. When we say talk about the making platform social, also the ease of use and the integrated activity streams, whether it's coming from a knowledge source, from a training department, or whether it's coming from an expert database, whether it's come from a risk database, issue database, all that is actually flowing in as an integrated activity stream. So it doesn't really matter which source it's coming from. I get it all into an integrated activity stream. And today's mobile generation wants that way. Like they want apps like whether it's coming from. I mean, they have friend circles in Google Plus, in Facebook, in Twitter, but they want everything to flow into the single activity stream. So it's not just about the social, but also the work activity stream flows into a single stream, encouraging people to connect, explore, discover knowledge, and social connections, between these multiple platforms. See, these were the layers of the social layers on the top of the platform, which we started focusing on specifically for the knowledge workers in the future. And of course, driving the change, people, keep them always in the center, that's more important. So recognizing them linchpins, partnering with people, the right kind of, and it's also important to partner with experts who can create this knowledge content. It's equally important, for them to be very active, because if you look at any of these open source projects or any of these kind of social knowledge initiatives, the few linchpins and their existence makes a huge difference. So that kind of a partnership is important, and very integrated campaigns and communities, and making them form communities and foster that culture of communities, and making evolve, allowing everybody to evolve as a leader within the respective community. These were some of these important aspects of people as well that we were trying to make. So I don't know if it's not very kind of visible. The bottommost, the last, the out part is actually our integrated activity stream. So what you see on the right side is actually our communities who are part of the teams and the leaderboards who are actually bubbled up because of their contribution and so on. And what you see here in this activity stream can flow in from any system. It can be from a task system, and again when the task flows in, it flows in with along with the recommended knowledge sources and also the recommended experts, which they can connect right within the system and actually start a conversation thread. And there is a conversation thread on which they are expected as an expert to come in, that again flows into the same activity streams. Or if they have already participated in a conversation and somebody is actually commented on that, or somebody is actually further conversation is going on, that again flowing. And what is important is to kind of ensure that the right signal filters out here, because the right few initial few pages which draws our attention is important. That is where we were looking at a lot of intelligent search and intelligent knowledge filtering and so on. That's where we applied a lot of algorithms, and we partner with good institutes as well, like who help us with that kind of statistical algorithms. We partner with, in India we partner with ISI, Indian Statistical Institute. US we partner with Carnegie Mellon universities who actually do a lot of this research on these kind of algorithms and the lab activities. Finally, of course, it needs to be successful, so we need to measure, and anything unless we measure, only when we measure that success. So how do we measure? Now, many people come back and say, hey, how do we measure the success of a knowledge initiative? We started with very simple things. If you keep your associates, your users, your customers in the center, engaged user or engaged customer, they need to feel that engaged feeling. I mean, they should be part of the system, part of this process, part of this initiative, part of this organizational goal. I'm taking it along. So for them to be engaged is the number one measure of the success. So we measure it in multiple ways. We have studies on how people who are active, like initially during the pilot period, who are active members, who are, and therefore, like, are they kind of, whether they have an affinity towards the organization more than the rest. So we did a lot of hypothesis testing on that, whether they get, and the managers and leaders who are active in that, whether they are keeping their teams more happy. And we have this 360-degree evaluation. Even our team members can actually come back and rate our supervisors and leaders. So we have actually rating from them, which is called as a business effectiveness survey. So all managers and above get the score. So the BA scores are people and leaders who are actually active and engaging their team the virtual distributed teams actually are, engaging them actively through these systems, they are a better score. So in multiple ways, we actually collaborate with that. And of course, when it comes to work, whether we are enabling them by the right process, right knowledge at the right time, and that is helping people to continuously improve on all the work parameters, efficiency, effectiveness, the ability to deliver services on time, and time to market, and more importantly, whether that's actually paved the way for any large innovation that's coming out of the unit and project and so on. So that is the way that we kind of go back and measure. And of course, we do have good results on all these parameters. And essentially, like it's been a past about 5 years where we have been benchmarking and where we've been some of these external groups and analysts and others as well coming back and studying us as case studies, like Harvard as case studies on Cognizant 2.0. And similarly, we have people from IDC writing, and we have books about this entire journey, and the Cognizant 2.0 specifically have been kind of presented as a case study in this book, which is the new polymer. So with this, I will stop. I think 45 minutes, so now is the time for Q&A. The Q&A will come to the main screen, isn't it? So you can actually type your question, so we can read it from here.
How do you get access to this PPT? So that will be, if it's okay with you, I can share.
Yeah, it is okay to share this PPT. I think the whole recording along with the PPT is going to be uploaded as what? Yeah.
Now knowledge management system.
Yeah. No knowledge management is complete without, like a
PPT.
Yeah. Any kind of forum, any conversations, any of these sharing, I think we should go back and
For non-IT industry, what should be the typical framework for KM?
What would be the typical framework? See, it's that's what I said. See, whether it's a non-IT or an IT, what is important is knowledge to be disseminated along with your work systems, which we believe a lot. For example, there are also people today, even in our industries, where people are not necessarily all the time connected to the systems and so on. Even for them, for their nature of work, we're thinking how to actually disseminate knowledge. I actually like the ITC. Actually, I was listening to one of their presentations. I was highly impressed the way in which they have actually disseminated knowledge to farmers as communities. They actually have knowledge hubs in every villages where they actually share some of this. So it needs to be disseminated right in that site. If it is a farmland right within right within that villages and so on, or if it's a shop floor right within the shop floor. So there has to be some kind of a hub and like a spoke, and the spoke needs to reach out into the work system. That's our fundamental belief. So the KM framework can be anything, but we need to observe what the nature of the work and how they are actually interacting on a day-to-day basis. So how do we actually enable them? So if we kind of study and do an analysis or just merely observe, it's do a time motion study or just be a very good observation, being a very good observer of that work nature. I think that will actually help us a lot. Some of even in our cases for our sales teams, people who keep people who are completely on rotate, keep moving around. We realize that the need to actually disseminate knowledge through mobile devices. So it's actually the mobile would be the primary, like way of interfacing with the knowledge system. So each one of these kind of framework needs to evolve, studying the worker. So it's not an IT or a non-IT. It's basically what is their work area, where they actually assemble and come together and work. The knowledge need to be disseminated there, because otherwise it will be a knowledge will be a one-off time activity. Like which is also required. People taking time out for training, people taking time out of participating in forums, that's important, but it needs to be plugged into the work systems or disseminated through their work channels is our basic belief.
The second question was how effective in your organization implementing social channels and your employees.
How effective is it to implementing the social channels?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a good question. I don't know if it's coming from an IT organization. Okay, so one of the challenge for organizations like us is like when we implement social, we need to, it's like walking on the tightrope, right? The immediate question would come was, hey, how do you ensure security? Like security practices and policies, a lot of questions used to come around that. I think we need to have a very balanced social media policy. That's what we believe in. See, whether we kind of put a firewall and say that, okay, I mean, no social channel or something like that and close it all, is not going to really help because people do have access to the social channel when they go out of the organization anyway. Does it mean that we can stop any of them having conversations? So it's actually coming back, it's actually on educating the people to tell them what to share, what not to share, how to actually act as, and that actually need to go for every, I would say that every person who has got a social media presence, starting from the teenagers, right? They need to be aware of the plus, the pros, and the cons. They need to be aware of the risks there as well, and they need to be educated. Rather than saying that no to social, it's more of education. So if you look at from a social, we have multiple things. We also do allow people to access social channels, which are standard industry social channels. We don't go back and say no to internet for our employees. And also like our systems, which is the work systems, also we believe a social layer is important. That also need to be socially designed. Social doesn't mean allowing people to have access to social media. We can learn a lot from that, and those social design and principles and bring that as part of the work system is the approach that we have taken. We have made a said no to access to the social media, and as well as we have designed our work system, knowledge systems and collaboration systems with social flavor so that people find it easy, and we are also finding it easy to promote the right behavior.
What is the latest application technology to share the knowledge within the organization?
Come again, what is it? Is there any latest
Application or technology to share the knowledge within organization?
when we started, I would say that we had to do a lot of research because when we started about 5 years back, the technologies were evolving and maturing. And today, if you look at it, if you're starting now, you have a late starter advantage, I should say. There's a lot more technologies which are actually coming, and I mean, they're very good emerging computing technologies. I don't want to go back and pick anything and say. We can only share that what we have based our application on. We have built it on the top of Microsoft technologies. So we've been evolving right when Microsoft technologies were evolving, right from SharePoint, the SQL Server, and we've built a lot of our custom processors, work layer, and with our own custom application, again on Microsoft SQL servers and so on. But we have leveraged a lot of SharePoint for our collaboration, but we have made our own social design layer on the top of that to bring in the synergy of work and collaboration together. But between like when we started and now there are multiple technologies available. So I think any technologies which suits the need, we can actually pick and choose. What is important in my opinion is choosing a technology which is more interoperable and which is allowing us to build our own custom layers or make these multiple technologies work together. We felt that a lot of technologies are very good, promising functionalities for their point needs. But then when it comes to making it all work together, that is where we have to put in a lot of effort. We have to make it all work together seamlessly and bring that user experience and make for that user like right within the work system they can tap into the wisdom. So that was important for us, kind of bringing it all together. So to that extent, when we choose a technology, we need to be aware that we should also get it all work together. So to that extent, we should evaluate it from those angles as well.
Next is there any off-the-shelf product available for knowledge management?
Off-the-shelf knowledge
SMEs.
for the see there are a lot of off-the-shelf knowledge management products that are available, and today you have these kind of knowledge management available both for on-premise implementation as well as on cloud, right? So starting from all major players like Microsoft, Google, almost everybody has, and of course even our India-based solutions, Zoho, a lot of solutions where people do have these kind of content document management, information management, and as well as a good amount of them having a good collaboration capabilities as well. But if we need to think and make it integrate with the work system, we need to evaluate that. A lot of off-the-shelf technologies available, yes.
There is a mechanism where intellectual property knowledge is being protected over social channels.
Very good question, right? I mean, it's equally important for us to actually be very prudent about how to protect our IP. So there are actually technologies available, but there are also technologies which we may have to evolve. There are we can actually do multiple things. Systemically, we can go back and see whether we can moderate some kind of certain kind of, even using the same search technologies, certain things you can go back and see whether you see a pattern of download, upload, sharing and so on. We can also digitally protect content. Almost all software that I talked about, at least in Microsoft, we know there are digital right management systems where we can actually digitally protect the content. And we also do moderation where we also allow community moderation for content, anything unethical or that kind of which is against our value system. That should, because we need to promote an open culture, the need same time we need to have the balance. So even that we can actually systemically control. There are all these systems that we talked about, they are some kind of a solution at least to protect digital content, and as well as we can actually develop and evolve on that to ensure that IP is protected, and you can look for behavior saying that downloads, upload. We can watch, monitor for downloads and uploads on specific contents, downloads, abnormal behavior of downloads or uploads and things like that. There are multiple ways of doing it. You can definitely evolve.
There's a question from PCS Srinivas.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really see it fully integrating with cloud computing, or will there be limitations?
See, with the cloud computing, right? I mean, initially we thought that all these social, mobile, analytics, like on most of these work systems and the collaboration and knowledge system, there will be an immediate appetite for to consume it only from the clouds. Cloud definitely, I would say, it's more a technology enabler for us from an end user standpoint, whether it's a cloud or not. It's a question of how helpful or how beneficial it is for them. I think the previous question when somebody talked about whether there is any off-the-shelf solution for SMEs, I believe that for smaller groups, smaller organizations, definitely there's a cloud advantage because you can actually, multiple people can share infrastructure and things like that. So cloud has definitely got a technology advantage. But when it comes to a larger one, I see an increasing trend of private clouds as well. That so when you have a critical mass, then it becomes a private cloud rather than a public cloud. So yes and no. I mean, there is definitely a promise from a cloud standpoint. There are opportunities exist to get better cost effectiveness by adopting cloud technologies. I think G. Venkatesan is the next one.
No, there is before that Sarika.
Sarika. Okay.
Can you suggest some ways where we can capture the knowledge in an organization, such as experts across
Global countries. Yeah. See, tacit knowledge is what when we started. I mean, in fact, if you look back, my presentation, I started talking about. It is important for making people seek questions, right? One thing that we've realized is tacit knowledge is very easy to actually bring it out when you actually ask the questions. So that is the reason why we wanted to encourage seeking questions. Even in a training session, right? When actually a lecturer or a trainer comes back and when they actually deliver that given content, that is still in some form of an explicit knowledge. The actual experience sharing will happen during the question and answer, if you've noticed it. Like when people come back and ask the questions and then they come back with the answers and the discussion continues. So we believe a good way of tapping into tacit knowledge is promoting the seeking culture and providing multiple ways. The Q&A is actually a very good way of tapping into tacit knowledge. Another important observation that we found was we used to have this something called as a retrospection of every project. Of course, every project after the completion, they have to fill up this retrospection and go back and document and post it to the knowledge repository. Of course, many people did that very sincerely, and there are also cases where it started becoming very ritualistic. In the sense, okay, there is a retrospection, there is a template, go back, what do you do if you do differently, okay, fill something and then post it and so on. And then you can actually motivate people to do different things. We started asking people to come back and share experiences, both the positive and the bad experiences, both the best practices or the learnings, because we need to actually also have a culture of making people share both the best and as well as the worst experience that they have had. And we promoted that through blog, and people started coming back and sharing their experience through the blog, which didn't have any template. it was more a free form storytelling style people started sharing. And we felt at least a lot of tacit knowledge were coming through those informal channels of blogs. So my only submission for tacit knowledge is promote multiple medium of sharing knowledge and promote more informal knowledge sharing, and that would actually go a long way in making people in making the tacit knowledge come out. And tacit knowledge also like will can get actually codified, tagged, bookmarked, and like delivered through the search engines and so on. And people also like that kind of a variety of reading. When they read these project case studies, something coming in the blog form, some storytelling style, it was actually bringing out a lot of tacit knowledge.
Ventilation, Metso India. Please suggest how we develop a market intelligence and embedded this knowledge in the core business processes for Salesforce and other interfacing departments.
Actually, any of the organization, if you look at it, it's very important to have a very good knowledge management system, and they would typically start very well in the sales department. I believe like some of the cloud and even the SaaS technologies like Salesforce and other things are also very successful because the sales team and marketing team typically have a lot of appetite. So I appreciate this question. One is I believe, like from our experience that if you go back for the sales team, one important knowledge is knowledge about customers. Most of these sales force automation tools or CRM tools typically provides that. But then today's Salesforce automation and CRM needs to evolve a little bit more. It cannot be only the knowledge about the customer or knowledge only what is there in our customer database. Just an example, like for example, if I'm promoting a product, I need to understand about the plus and minus of the product or the market reaction to the product. Right? We don't have to necessarily go back to customer database. We don't have to. Of course, we need to go to the customer database. We also have knowledge which is in support calls, service desk database, and so on, where people have reported issues, where people have given feedback about the product. Even those are important knowledge. But we should also listen to the customers through our social media. People now come back and share their experiences of product first in the Twitter, first in like those kind of stuff. So it's also important to expand our customer listening. So in fact, CRM solutions specifically, they are actually evolving a lot in adapting these kind of social technologies. Social CRM is a very happening field. A lot of knowledge about the customer, a lot of knowledge about the market, and the intelligence both about the market trends and as well as specifically for the customers of specific products would can be actually delivered through the social CRM system. So you can actually do a lot on the social CRM. I think if you go back, there are a lot of social CRM forums where particularly on these topics a lot of things get discussed. So if you go to the social CRM forums, you can actually get a lot more knowledge, very informative, intellectual exchange of conversation that's happening in those forums. Oh, thanks. I'm going back to mine. Okay, so this is Sarika we finished and
Capture.
Venkateshan is going to be finished. So okay. Shiva Prasad, yours is the typical thing. What should be the typical effectiveness measure of KM? This is our belief. One is like, of course, we have multiple level of measurement. First, when we started the system, we look at the reach and the frequency. How many people it is reaching, and with what frequency people are coming and contributing and consuming. We don't only look at consumption. We don't look at only contribution. Also look at consumption. People come back and what frequency they consume, what frequency they contribute, and what percentage of your organization it is reached. These are the basic metrics, the reach and frequency metrics. But this is basically the starting point, right? The next is like how does it impact the business? So the effectiveness, that's what I think I summed it up in the last slide. I don't think you can look at effectiveness of KM in isolation. If you look at any quality process improvement initiative or any innovation initiative or the knowledge management initiative, most of these organizational process improvement, any change management initiatives, typically these don't work in silos. We need to do a proper amount of hypothesis testing and see that how much of an impact they are making on actual business effectiveness. So we believe the business effectiveness metrics are important to measure that. So the effectiveness metrics are again how happy your people are, how happy your employees are. Do they feel that they actually have a very good access to the knowledge? They are satisfied. And is their work, is it showing in their work? Is it improving their efficiency and effectiveness? A typical productivity metric or any of the quality metric that what we measure. We go back and look at the people who have better access to all these knowledge management, are they doing better in their work effectiveness and work efficiency? And of course, we also go back, and if you're also exposing these to customers, we also look at end customer satisfaction and not only your internal user satisfaction. And one more is like whether this is paving any way for big innovation. Is it like resulted in a bigger improvement or innovation where it's not a direct efficiency and effectiveness, but then because of this collective wisdom and working together, have they come back with a new product idea, new service idea, which is actually bringing in more revenue or more customers. So that way we can go back and measure the effectiveness of KM systems. Sarika from Capgemini, right? Some best practices to effectively capture knowledge objects for specific projects as a knowledge manager for the specific domain or country. Knowledge objects can be anything. I mean, in fact, it's actually too wide. I would say that a knowledge object, everything, any conversation or every output that we generate during the work is actually a knowledge object. That's how we would put it. And today's systems don't have limitations in terms of space. We don't have limitations on what we can search and crawl. So why limit it, right? So I would say that, like every output, and that is where we found it important and also like found it very, very effective to integrate it with the work system. Because this is the integrated with the work system, every output that comes out of every step of their work automatically feeds into the knowledge system for that particular team at least. And then when they feel that this knowledge is shareable and it can bubble up for a larger account or an engagement team, then for within the respective customer team, they will go and sit in the knowledge repository. Then at an organization level, then you need to look at specific case studies, projects. There you need specific campaigns to motivate people, because when they generate as part of their work, typically it has a lot of work context, which sometimes is shareable and sometimes it's not. Most of the times, in fact, it is with respect to the working team. Then we need to kind of get that experience out of it and also make these organizational groups, the centers of excellence, R&D groups and others, they can contribute, because whatever they are contributing typically is supposed to be consumed by the entire organization. But the people who are part of the delivery side of the organization, we need to motivate them to capture that knowledge in an abstracted form. There, I think what you're saying is correct. Your retrospections, your case studies, and those are very important to kind of have a list to go back and promote people to contribute that. But when it comes to working projects, every output of every step of work is actually a knowledge. It's equally important to kind of it's equally important to kind of repository them, bookmark them, and ensure that that gets disseminated right within the team. A specific domain or country, I see domain specific, country specific. For every domain, of course, you can go back and again, for the domain, whatever is the market conditions, every industry knowledge, we don't have to necessarily restrict when it comes to industry specific domains. We don't have to necessarily restrict to your organization knowledge, but you can also tap into the wisdom of the industry domain on which you are operating. Same thing holds good for country as well. So if you're operating on a particular country or geography and you want information about that geography or country, not necessarily it comes within the organization. You should also have curators which can actually curate content from external sources, which is from industry sources. Party, if not all, most of the companies are service providers. So knowledge required for such work is momentary, not a long-term nature. Just we need quick instant solutions. None of us are working in long-term research. Example, drug discovery, okay, fine. Which is very important. It's true that, but then that doesn't mean that today's knowledge is irrelevant for tomorrow. But it is true that the knowledge requirement is instantaneous. But doesn't mean that the knowledge that we gather, it's only got a momentary life. I don't completely agree with that. Though we don't work on long-term research, I believe that everything that we gain as an experience, it's going to be helpful in some form. But how helpful it is, how relevant it is, that is where your intelligent filtering plays a big role, right? So your currency of information, if you're for the domain that you work on or the kind of project that you work on, you should actually give the flexibility for that group to kind of configure the relevancy and say that the recency is important. For example, if you're in a news industry, recency is the most important one. The recency is very important. So the recency, if it needs to be important here, yes. And if in some other place, it's not the recency, but it is the matches of a particular kind of a keyword or particular vocabulary that is more important. It's that. So it's actually goes by the domain. That's what. So it's not that everything is momentary. And I also believe that we always stand taller on the inventions and discoveries and experiences of others. So even though we don't work, most of us don't work on R&D type of organizations where it takes multiple years. We believe that it's also important that every knowledge is actually captured, but then you can filter it out. You can actually filter it out. It cannot be too much of signal. Sometimes even we believe, when we go and do a generic Google search, it's not very helpful for us on some context because it's not very fine-tuned for our need. So that is where working on specific domains and specific groups, it actually opens up a lot more opportunity to fine-tune that so that the knowledge can be more contextual. Dissemination can be contextual. But a capture should not stop. I think we should capture every momentary experience that we capture. Um, what are the tangible results of KM system in an organization? How can we measure an ROI? Again, I think I repeat, the ROI here cannot be separate. It's the same business effectiveness metric like productivity, efficiency, effectiveness, and so on. Similarly, anything that, any innovation that we come out of that, that is important. Short-term, long-term threats of not having a structured KM system for a typical 1,000-employee organization. I don't think it is a 1,000-employee organization or more or a smaller that is important, right? There are typical things that you have to watch for. How volatile is your organization? No, how fast these 1,000-member teams keep changing. I mean, if it's more volatile, it's an immediate risk, right? It's not a long-term threat. It's an immediate risk. And second thing that we need to see is that what type of services that you do, what type of teams you assemble. If in each team you dynamically form teams out of these 1,000 members in different forms, that again, knowledge management system and a structured knowledge management system is important. Because if you form volatile teams which comes together, in our case we form projects and then they go back and then another team in another project, it's a different set of team members coming together and so on. Typically, same set of people working together under the same roof under a longer period of time, they don't find an immediate need or a threat for, there is no threat of not having, I mean, they don't see a threat of not having a KM system, but going by the current trends across the industry, I mean, what was not volatile? I mean, I just observe like even other industries like teaching. Typically, we see teachers who join a school and retire in the same school, or or at least continue teaching as a profession for the whole of their career. In today's generation, is not like that, right? People do move around and they want to experience multiple industries. So I would rather bet on a more structured KM system than, I would assume that it's more going to be more volatile, or it may not be as volatile as it's compared to another industry, but it always helps. And also another part is that if you actually have a same set of team working for a longer period of time, even then promoting these kind of social and collaboration behavior among the same team members would help a lot, because they can actually, doesn't mean that they've always shared their experience, or the people who are working in the same cubicle now actually have that intense knowledge sharing all the time, cannot be an assumption. So these kind of putting together a structured process and initiative would definitely help. Came for an event management organization. Okay, I believe it's a very, I think I see it's a lot of happening organization in the industry. We see a lot of, and I also see that a lot of creativity kind of happening right at the grassroots level in this event management organization typically. So it's important to actually make people share ideas, success stories, what went well, what didn't go well, and more informal in nature, because I've seen event management organizations typically have a culture of, very different kind of a culture of team bonding. So I believe a lot of informal culture and informal forums where they come together, come back, share their stories of success and share their stories of embarrassment in managing an event, and also a lot of ideas that worked, and tapping into the wisdom for putting together a need and then bringing out multiple people participating and coming up with ideas for those events. Kind of knowledge would work and go a long ways. Just my humble submission, because we also do a lot of events as part of our internal campaigns. So from that experience I share. I mean, otherwise I don't have a big experience in this industry. Appraisal of knowledge stands in the 360-degree appraisal in an organization. Okay, it's a very good question. We do actually have a criteria in our appraisal saying that how good the person has shared knowledge, seeked, and so on. But it's not only in one channel. Whether through trainings, whether through forums in multiple forms. We do have actually that as part of the appraisal. But what I believe more than that is, some way of motivating people more close to real time. That goes a long way. Making people get recognized in the leaderboards or giving them an equal standing with more seniors and getting them appreciated by more people. Actually, that goes a very long way. So that kind of appraisal for knowledge, right at the real time, more close to real time, which attacks their pride value, not necessarily a monetary value alone, which will actually go a long way. What about project podcast? Okay, that's actually a good question, sir. Sarika. Thanks for bringing it up. Because otherwise, I kind of missed it out in the sense when I talked about codified knowledge and informal knowledge. I talked about law of knowledge, documents. Today's knowledge doesn't just comes up with documents. You need more images. It's actually an era of more images and videos. So definitely podcast will go a long way. Videos, audios, we can't just stop. Today's, you can't even assume that everybody comes and sit in a training and they can actually spare that time because we work in multiple geographies and multiple time zones. So it's important to have these kind of multiple channels and just success of TED events and the TED videos says it all, right? When TED event was initially started, it was actually a very highly paid premium event, closely invited, or very few people attending. But the moment they made that video was actually open up. In fact, the main events registration also started shooting up, and a lot of beneficiaries of those videos. It's really tapping into the wisdom of the entire world from multiple industries and so on. So that it goes a very long way. If you've already started, I think you are in the right direction there. So anything more as questions? Let's going in after that, or I can also type it in my email ID, or I also have a Twitter handle and Facebook and LinkedIn. So whichever you feel comfortable, you can actually search for Rajeshri Natarajan. My official mail ID is rajeshri.natarajan@cognizant.com. You can mail to me as well, and you can also search for me and then probably send me a friend request or follow request on Twitter or Facebook. So even there I can come and share any of your questions. And we also have, I don't know, maybe like you are, this is across India or is it pan India? Okay. So we also have, I think CIA is promoting a lot of K community events in the respective regions as well. I know at least I can speak for Chennai, we are very active in Chennai. So people who are in Chennai, you can actually drop me a mail, we can connect for the K community event. Every month we meet in IIT Research Park. And again, similarly, it happens in Bangalore, Mumbai. So we recently happened to visit the Mumbai event as well. So these are actually as well forums. I think we should thank CI for that, for bringing all